Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel is still reeling from the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. ILTV investigates how Trump will change America's Middle East policies, and American Jews are concerned a Trump presidency will lead to a rise in anti-Semitism. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here with the latest news in Israel. The American elections are finally over, and Israeli leaders are among the first to reach out and congratulate U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who stunned the world by defeating Hillary Clinton in the race for the White House. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli President Ruvi Rivlin have already issued videotaped messages of congratulations to the new president-elect.
President-elect Trump, my friend, congratulations on being elected President of the United States of America. You are a great friend of Israel. Over the years, you've expressed your support consistently, and I deeply appreciate it.
There are many challenges that lie before you as president at home and around the world. Israel, your greatest ally, stands by you as your friend and partners in turning those challenges into opportunities.
Yet not everyone is happy about the election of Donald Trump in the Jewish state. ILTV hit the streets of Tel Aviv to see how locals were feeling about the results of the historical race to the White House.
What do you think about the outcome of the U.S. election?
I'm devastated.
Devastated?
Yeah.
What do you think about Donald Trump?
I don't think he's fit to run a country. I don't think that somebody has absolutely zero political experience should be running a country. Someone that isn't inclusive of every single character or background that is present in the U.S.
Do you think Hillary would be a better candidate than Trump?
No doubt. Yeah. I think her whole history has been in politics, her whole upbringing, what she studied, she's worked in it her whole life. I think we're going in a very bad direction with Trump.
What do you think about Donald Trump becoming the president of the United States?
Well, I think that's the man of his words. Like, I saw the election map of the United States, and all the East Coast and West Coast, they voted for Hillary. And all the simple people in the middle of the country, they voted for Trump. Because I think that the American people are getting tired of all these changes and all these politically correct people. They just want a simple man to do the job. That's what I think.
Are you happy that he won, or were you more on the Hillary side?
As a Russian and both Israeli, I'm pretty happy, yes.
Do you think he would be good for Israel in any way?
I think he'd be good for Israel, but I think that Clinton would have been good for Israel in the same way. I don't understand why people got that misconception that she wouldn't be.
Israel is now waiting to see if Trump's administration will follow through on campaign promises he made to the Jewish state. First and foremost, that means official U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as the undivided capital of the state of Israel, which no American president before Trump has ever declared. The president of the Palestinian Authority has already extended his congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump, but it looks as though Palestinian civilians across the West Bank are concerned. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is urging Trump to work towards a two-state solution as a means of realizing a just peace in the region. The Palestinian Authority says it's willing to work with any American president who strives towards the goal, while the Hamas leadership in the Gaza Strip says it's expecting more bias from the United States now that Trump will be in power. Many Palestinians in the West Bank share this concern.
كفلسطينيين كان تلقينا نبأ فوز ترامب كانت هي عبارة عن ساعة قائلنا لأنه عارفين شو بده يجر هذا الفوز خراب ودمار على الشعب الفلسطيني والقضية الفلسطينية.
والله طبعا بده يأثر علينا أكثر ناس إحنا الفلسطينيين أكثر الشعب الفلسطيني. القضية الفلسطينية ستظل يعني في الثلاجة مجمدة 4 سنين أخرى حتى يأتي الله بكلب آخر يعني يحكم أمريكا.
Last month, Trump told the Israeli prime minister that the United States would recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel if he were to be elected. East Jerusalem was captured by Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War, and the Palestinians want the area to be the capital of a future Palestinian state. For many locals, Trump or no Trump, the situation is hopeless.
يعني من عهد يعني بيل كلينتون لعهد جورج بوش، حتى من عهد جورج بوش الأب لبيل كلينتون لعهد جورج بوش الابن لأوباما ما تقدم في الصراع الفلسطيني، ما تقدم أي شيء خاصة للشعب الفلسطيني بأي شيء. فأي رئيس فلسطيني أي رئيس أمريكي راح يجي مش راح يعني يقدم للقضية الفلسطينية أي شيء.
Yet not every Palestinian is so pessimistic. The Secretary General of the Palestinian Liberation Organization says a two-state solution has long been in American interest, and this election is unlikely to change that.
Well, the United States is not a country of moods of individuals. It's a country that specifies its foreign policy in accordance with its interests. And as I told you, for both the Republicans and the Democrats, realizing the two-state solution on the 1967 lines is a higher national American interest, and I think this will continue.
Most observers believe that based on the campaign platform of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, America's policies on the Middle East are about to shift. That has the potential to not just change the reality for Israel and the region, but also for America itself. If Trump does recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, it won't just break with decades of precedent. It will also pit his administration against the positions of most of the United Nations. As far as the peace process with the Palestinians, Trump's top advisors say the next president is willing to mediate negotiations but won't push an accord. He's also stated that there are options other than the two-state framework, which is welcome news for Israel's right wing. Education Minister Naftali Bennett said today that Trump's victory has just ended the concept of a Palestinian state, which Bennett believes endangers a Jewish one. Trump has also vowed to nullify the 2015 nuclear accord with Iran, which could have a profound impact on Israel. But Moscow supports Tehran, and this could alter Trump's hopes on forging closer ties with Russia. On the other hand, Trump isn't critical of the Kremlin's fight against the Islamic State in Syria, and he's also vowed to step up the U.S. fight against ISIS. Here's what's being heard on the streets of Damascus about what to expect from the 45th American president.
وأعتقد أن فوز ترامب بما حمله من تصريحات بان الحملة الانتخابية يؤكد أن هناك تغيير ما في السياسة الأمريكية تجاه منطقة الشرق الأوسط خاصة، وأن ترامب قد صرح عدة مرات أنه لابد من تغيير سياسي في اتجاه دول الخليج. أضف إلى ذلك أن ترامب تحدث أيضا عن محاربة الإرهاب وأنه مستعد لإرسال قوات لمقاتلة داعش. أعتقد أننا سنشهد تغييرات من خلال السياسة الأمريكية، هذا إذا كانت الحملة الانتخابية سوف تتوافق مع رئيس ترامب ما بعد الحملة الانتخابية. أضف إلى ذلك أن الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية تواجه إرهابا أصبح واضحا في كل أنحاء العالم، وبالتالي عليها أن تقاتل هذا الإرهاب. لذلك نحن نقول نتمنى أن تكون التصريحات الأمريكية تتوافق مع الخطوات ما بعد انتخاب ترامب.
Others believe American policy will be redesigned exclusively to favor Israel.
انتخابات فاشلة وكلهم يعوا على الشعب السوري وتصب هاي المصالح الانتخابية بمصلحة اليهود وحسبي الله ونعم الوكيل.
Egypt has also been cracking down on Islamist terrorism, so the triple alliance between Cairo, Jerusalem, and Washington may grow stronger. It looks like the winds of change are blowing, and we'll all just have to stay tuned to find out what's going to happen. Here with us in the studio today is CEO of the Hebrew City Organization, May Golan, and Haifa University lecturer, Hezi Kugler, to help expand upon what the future holds in the next 4 years. Thanks so much for coming in, guys.
Thank you.
So earlier today, President-elect Trump made some very strong comments about his plans in the Middle East, especially in Israel. He's made a lot of promises to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, to tear up the Iranian nuclear deal, and he's even encouraging more settlement construction. Do you think that now that he's president, or president-elect, once he's actually in power, will he be able to follow through with these promises that he's made?
Listen, this is the first time since 1928 where Republicans has not just won the presidency of the United States, but also has the majority in both in Congress and in Senate. So if the Republicans will stay united behind Donald Trump, I believe he can, make all these promises and even more. If they'll not, he can always, do what Obama did and, ask for, how do you call it? How do you call it? 1 second. An executive order. Yeah, I forgot. I'm not an American. He can always do that. But, I believe that Trump is going to stand behind his words because I don't see any reason he wouldn't. He supports Israel. He wants the safety of Israel to continue. He won't force us to do something that we don't want to do. And I personally feel very safe that he will continue the real friendship between America and the United States, not like we had the last 8 years with Barack Obama.
Hizzy?
Well, first, I don't think there's a contradiction between following the policies of the last 8 years and not being a friend of the State of Israel. The relationship between the State of Israel and the United States is very strong, sometimes despite presidents or prime ministers or whomever. I think actually in this case, the last 8 years have actually gone to prove that even though personal relationships sometimes aren't as good as they can be sometimes, nevertheless, the strategic relationship and the shared values between the countries prove themselves, and the level of assistance to Israel over the last 8 years has actually increased greatly. Having said that, every president, when he comes into office, is confronted with reality. It is true that Donald Trump is a type of person that may decide that he is one who can change reality. We've seen that. So maybe that would be the case here as well. But still, there is a reality in place. To say that he's going to overturn long-standing policies in the U.S. And cause a virtual revolution on the foreign stage, I think would probably be going too far. I actually have the impression that he's a fairly realistic gentleman, and when he gets into office and has to actually deal with leaders in the situation as it exists, he will be quite pragmatic. But yeah, he can make changes, for sure.
All right, guys. Now, polls show that 70% of the American Jewish vote went to Hillary Clinton, despite all the many times that Trump claimed that he was a big supporter of pro-Israel and showed that he was standing with the Jewish population and the Jewish values. Why do you think he lost that demographic?
I think there is a big difference between the Jewish Americans here that live in Israel and the Jewish Americans that live in America. And you can see it. It's a fact that Trump won in Israel. Over 75% in Israel has voted for Trump, the people that could have voted. And I really think that the people that live in Israel know the real reality of Israel and what's really going on here. Therefore, they would really want to support someone like Trump who will keep them safe and support them. On a big difference that the American Jews that live in America, I'm sorry, but a lot of them are just delusional. And I'm saying it with great sorrow because they live in great comfort and sometimes great wealth. And when they look at Israel, they think that there is a possibility for a peace process and we're not trying hard enough, but they're not living under the terror attacks, they're not living under the sometimes very horrible and hardcore reality that is in Israel, and they want to put this, pink glasses and imagine that everything can be good. Therefore, they can connect more to the Hillary Clinton and Obama, administration. But I really feel very disappointed from the American Jews in America that, just for their interest, for feeling, very humanitarian and feel good about themselves, support someone that won't actually keep Israel safe for the long run.
I think that Jewish Americans have traditionally voted mostly out of interests that are endemic to the Jewish American place in the United States itself. Israel traditionally actually has not been the #1 issue that has guided their votes with respect to candidates, although it's an important issue, of course. Yeah. And so over the years, the values of the Democratic Party have generally been the values for which Jewish voters in the United States have voted. I think in this election, it was pretty obvious that because of the connotations of racism, anti-Semitism, and so on, divisiveness in society, these are the sort of things that cause a great deal of anxiety amongst the Jewish community, as well as with other communities who ultimately really are immigrants, remember the immigrant background that they have. And I'm not surprised that they would vote in those numbers for the Democratic candidate, but there was really nothing that was unusual here. It was the same percentage they voted also for a previous Democratic candidate, so it's not as if he, quote unquote, lost the Jewish vote.
You know,
He
it's funny.
basically got
It's
more
very
or less
funny
the
that
same
he
percentage.
would say that, because he's talking about the fact that immigrants, illegal immigrants, Jews, didn't vote for Trump, and I know that the majority of the illegals that are Jews are religious, and there was massive support of religious Jews in Donald Trump. But the people that did support Trump, you know, I'm thinking of Chaim Saban, the millionaire Chaim Saban, who really said horrible things about Trump before. He called him a crook, a thief, a liar, really horrible, horrible words.
I think actually that was just locker room talk.
What?
I think it was just locker room talk.
No, that was
Yeah.
staged. That was completely in front of all, you know, very public, completely to all the
But I
cameras.
heard that he apologized, didn't he?
He didn't apologize. No. Neither did Trump apologize, though. But yeah,
No, he doesn't apologize.
Yeah. But just to mention, you know, why am I mentioning Chaim Saban? Because when I'm thinking about this kind of, you know, very elitist Jews that don't support Trump and support Hillary, those are the ones that unfortunately are very detached from the real people and the real public in Israel. They don't know what's going on here, and it's very comfortable for them to choose Hillary. So I know a lot of religious people that actually don't have a legal status in America, but they said, we follow our hearts, and if we will be banned for being illegal, we will go back to Israel because we have to obey the law. And I can't tell you how much I respect that in American Jews that voted for Trump, although they don't have a citizenship there.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens now that Trump is going to become president. Thanks for coming.
He's now president-elected, but he will make his promises. Thank you.
Well, the 2016 election may be behind us, but several negative byproducts that emerged during the campaign still remain, including the possible rekindling of anti-Semitism. ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has more on this story.
The Anti-Defamation League went so far as to warn U.S. President-elect Trump that his campaign's use of anti-Semitic imagery and terminology regenerating classic anti-Jewish themes could encourage a backlash against American Jews. Critics say the conservative leader has ushered racist and anti-Semites from the fringes into the mainstream, even if it was unintentional. Self-declared Trump supporters altered Facebook profiles of Jews to include gas chambers and ovens, while white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups felt free to publicly endorse the candidate. Jewish journalists have been reporting a never-before-seen level of online harassment. One rabbi told local Israeli media that after never personally experiencing anti-Semitism, this election he was repeatedly targeted by hate speech. Crowds at some GOP rallies shouted anti-Jewish slurs. Even though Trump denies being an anti-Semite, many in the minority community say this campaign cycle has caused them concern over the future and to reassess just what it is to be Jewish in America today.
President-elect Donald Trump will have a very hard time implementing some of his promises regarding Israel that he made on the campaign trail. That's at least the view of Jerusalem Post columnist Amotz Asael, who told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that the promise to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem most likely won't take place.
Amotz Asael, during the election campaign, now President-elect Trump made a number of commitments, a number of promises. One was the immediate cancellation of the Iran nuclear deal. What would be the implications of such a move?
I think the idea of unilaterally and out of the blue canceling the American agreement with Iran will be a big difficulty for American diplomacy. You don't do that with international pacts, certainly not if you're America. You don't do that, I think, even in the business world's contracts with which Donald Trump is more familiar. And I therefore simply say, in terms of forecast, that I find this scenario difficult to predict. However, should that move be done, the immediate result would be that the Iranians would, with full force, proceed to accelerate, first of all to renew and then to accelerate their nuclear program, and that will be extremely destabilizing for an already severely destabilized Middle East. And I think, therefore, that many, many forces, including ones well within Trump's evolving structure, will try to resist this kind of move on his part.
Another campaign promise made by Trump was to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Others have promised in the past. Trump made the promise. He said he's going to keep it. What would be the implications?
I think that the relocation of the American embassy in Jerusalem would be opposed by the State Department to the extent that President Trump would listen to it. Crucial question, of course, in this context would be the identity of the prospective Secretary of State. But judging from the rationale of American foreign policy, the way it has been crafted in the post-war era, considering the dynamics that we witnessed time after time between American presidents and American secretaries of state and American State Departments, it is not likely that this promise will actually be delivered. And it should be borne in mind that many of Trump's election promises will evidently not be delivered or even attempted to be delivered, and this will be just another one of them.
One more promise that he made in his campaign was to oppose the idea of a Palestinian state in the middle of the land of Israel. Minister Naftali Bennett is already saying that the notion of a Palestinian state with the election of Donald Trump is now dead. Do you think that's an exaggeration? Will Trump, President-elect Trump, be less supportive of the notion of a Palestinian state than was President Obama?
I think that the idea of Palestinian statehood has indeed just been dealt a blow. But it should be borne in mind that the idea was the prospect of a Palestinian state and of an imminent two-state solution actually happening has anyhow been dying for a long time. I would say that it has been dying consistently since the year 2000, when for a moment it seemed about to be truly born during the Camp David talks between the Israeli Prime Minister and Yasser Arafat on behalf of the Palestinians in the presence of Bill Clinton. That's when we thought that it actually might happen. Sadly, we proceeded from there to very severe violence that animated much of last decade. And on the diplomatic front, in the meantime, there was no serious attempt on the part of the Palestinians to restore the commitment to this idea as we Israelis witnessed and understood it until 2000. Now this latest development with an American president who is, for the record, opposed to this formula and does not believe in it and holds the Palestinians accountable for its demise, obviously makes the prospect of a two-state solution actually happening even more distant than it previously was.
There are 195 recognized countries in the world, but one country seems to be the main focus of the United Nations. You guessed it, Israel. That's more clear now than ever after committees at the world body adopted 10 separate resolutions against Israel during the course of a single day. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story.
The bill's topics ranged from condemning Israel's record on Palestinian human rights to the situation of Arabs who fled the country in 1967 and the 1981 annexation of the Golan Heights. At least 2 of the resolutions reflected UNESCO's recent policy to completely ignore Jewish ties to the Temple Mount and refer to the holy site exclusively by its Muslim name. All 10 drafts will be submitted for an official vote by the General Assembly in December, when they're expected to pass. The only other countries targeted by the committees are Syria, North Korea, Iran, and Crimea. The director of the UN Watch NGO, Hillel Neuer, is slamming these latest developments as a farce, and he insists that the UN's disproportionate assault against the Jewish state undermines any claims that it's an impartial international organization.
And now for the Hebrew word of the day. Israel is reported to be a world leader in recycling, with over 61% of plastic bottles being returned. So today's word is lemachzer, or to recycle. There are many ways to lemachzer, from repurposing and composting to simple bottle return. But no matter how you do it, just feel good about doing it at all. After all, lemachzer has the same root as the word lachzir, or to return, so it's no surprise that recycling represents one of the best ways to give back to our planet. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast.
ILTV's weather forecast is sponsored by Adopt a Savta, taking care of Israel's lonely Holocaust survivors.
Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 62 or 17 degrees Celsius. Expect the weekend to be a little bit colder as temperatures drop to a high of 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.83 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.